She looked me in the eye, smiled, and pushed me out of a helicopter. My sister. For $5 million. Hi, I'm Selena. I was the CEO of a company I built from scratch until the two people I trusted most, my husband and my sister, decided my life was worth more dead than alive. They thought I wouldn't survive the fall. They thought they could bury me, take everything, and cry for the cameras like I never existed. But here I am, alive, angry, and very much ready to return the favor. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved so much you didn't see it coming? What would you do if your own family wrote your obituary while you were still breathing? Let me take you back to the moment they tried to end me. She smiled when she pushed me. That's the part that haunts me. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a getaway to celebrate another year of surviving marriage and business under the same roof. Aspen was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Snow fell in soft sheets, as if nature itself were trying to hush the tension I kept pretending wasn't there. I stood beside the helicopter, my breath fogging in the frigid air. Miranda threw her arms around me, hugging too tightly for someone in heels and full makeup at 7 a.m. You deserve this, she whispered into my ear. Her perfume smelled like expensive lies. Over her shoulder, Reed avoided my eyes, fumbling with the harness like it was his first time touching equipment he'd ordered. Something in me twitched, instinct, maybe, but I blinked it away. Marital tension, sibling jealousy. I'd excused worse. Happy anniversary, Reed said, finally looking at me with a corporate smile. That same one he gave to investors. Polished. Distant. He kissed my cheek, lips cold, hands colder. I saw the brief flash of irritation when I didn't smile back, like I'd broken script. The pilot gave a thumbs up. I climbed in first, strapping into the seat behind the cockpit. Reed and Miranda slid in beside me.
Her phone was already out.
Let's do one for the gram, she chirped, flipping to the front camera. I tried to smile. I really did. Closer, she said, scooting over. Her thigh pressed into mine. Reed didn't move. His arms were crossed, his jaw locked. He stared straight ahead, cold as the air outside. Not even pretending anymore. As we lifted off, the wind tugged at the ends of my hair I hadn't bothered to curl. The trees below looked like a snow globe someone had shaken and forgotten. Miranda shifted again. Her phone lowered. Her face turned toward mine. I saw it then, my old necklace around her neck. The one I gave her when we were kids. Back when she was scared of thunderstorms and wouldn't let go of my hand. You've always been in the way, she whispered, so close I felt the warmth of her breath. Then, without hesitation, her hand shoved my shoulder. It happened in a blink. The world tilted. Reed didn't move. He didn't yell. He didn't even flinch. His arms stayed crossed. His eyes blank. I reached out, but there was no one to catch me. The scream was ripped from my throat by the wind. My body twisted in free fall. Sky above. White below. Time fractured. My mind grabbed fragments to stay alive. Mother's hands braiding my hair. Her voice steady. Family protects. Or it's not family. My company's neon sign flickering to life that first year. Reed saying, trust me.
Trust.
What a joke. Through the blur, I saw a branch thick, jutting from the side of a pine tree. I reached, claws of instinct overriding the fear. My fingers caught it. Pain exploded. My right shoulder popped. My ribs shrieked. The world spun, but I stopped falling. I hung there, gasping, bleeding, frozen. They thought $5 million was worth more than my life. I whispered through clenched teeth. Let's see how much their freedom costs. Slow-motion silence followed. The hum of the rotor faded into nothing. All I could hear was the rush of wind in my ears, the thunder of my heartbeat, and the brittle creak of the branch holding my weight. I dragged myself onto the trunk. My legs screamed. My head pounded. Blood dripped from my scalp into the snow, painting it pink. My hand trembled as I pulled myself upright, branches snapping under my boots. My shoulder hung like dead weight. Each breath felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I moved. I found a branch, thick, sturdy. It became my crutch. Inch by inch, I limped through the trees. The snow rose past my calves. The cold cut through every layer. I muttered through chattering teeth. Not today. Hours blurred into a silver haze. The forest whispered with the sound of distant wind. I stumbled twice, knees sinking deep into snowbanks. The pain clawed at me, but I kept moving. Each step was defiance. Eventually I saw it. A cabin, half buried. Old. Forgotten. I pounded on the door. No answer. It was unlocked. Inside, it smelled like smoke and mold and something familiar. The scent of wood smoke and ash. Like Dad's flannel when he used to carry in firewood. Like staying alive. I collapsed to my knees, shaking. My fingers fumbled the bandages in the old first aid kit. My shoulder dangled uselessly. My leg, swollen and purple, screamed every time I breathed too hard. I wrapped myself in a blanket and pulled down a coat from the hook, lined with flannel, still holding the scent of pine and soot. It wrapped around me like armor. I sat against the wall, head tilted back, eyes fluttering closed. Then the radio crackled. Female, presumed dead after a helicopter accident near Reed Ridge Peak. No body recovered. And then my name. They'd already written me off. Claimed the insurance. Filed the papers. A dry laugh tore out of me. My eyes stung, but no tears fell. On a shelf beside the stove was an old Polaroid photo. 2 kids, a lake. One wearing a necklace. My necklace. The same one Miranda wore today. My hands clenched. In that moment, rage became resolve. I pulled the coat tighter around me. I wasn't done. They wanted me gone. But I wasn't gone. Not even close. Tomorrow was my funeral. Let's give them a funeral worth remembering. I wasn't buried. I was reborn. Right there, at my own funeral. The Denver sky was steel gray, clouds coiling like smoke over the horizon. I stood just outside the grand double doors of Havenwood Memorial Chapel, a black veil draped over my still healing face. The cold didn't bite like it did on the mountain. No, this cold was calm. Controlled. The kind that whispered, "Make it count." My boots clicked against the marble floor as I stepped inside. Silence dropped like a blade. The lobby was bathed in muted candlelight. A towering easel held a poster-sized photo of me, polished, smiling, fake. In loving memory of Selena Cross. A black ribbon sliced across one corner like a joke that had aged poorly. I walked past it without a glance. The funeral home smelled of lilies and lies. Inside the main room, Miranda stood at the front, dressed in flawless morning black, voice trembling over a microphone. She was more than my sister, she said, hands clasped tightly, perfectly manicured nails digging into faux grief. She was a light in dark times. A heart bigger than any room she walked into. Bullshit. Reed sat beside her, face tight, jaw flexing like he'd rehearsed it. His eyes were red, but not from crying. No, those were strategic tears. Calculated. I walked down the aisle. Slowly. Deliberately. Past neighbors, board members, a few local officials who used to beg me for campaign donations. Phones buzzed. Heads turned. Then, a gasp. "That's her," someone yelled. "That's Selena." The room cracked open like a dropped mirror. Miranda's voice faltered mid-sentence. She stared at me, mouth parted. A second too long. A second too honest. Then Reed shot to his feet, rushing toward me. "She's back," he said loudly, practically announcing it for the cameras. "Thank God." He reached for me, arms wide. I stepped back. Just enough. "Don't touch me." The silence that followed was sharp, audible. Reed's arms dropped slowly, like surrendering a weapon. Miranda blinked, face slack for a heartbeat before snapping into performance mode. "Selena, my God, we thought. You thought I was gone." I cut in.
Dead.
Conveniently. She shook her head.
No.
We were devastated. "You filed the insurance claim before my body hit the ground." I said it loud.
Clear.
Every word a match. The crowd shifted. A murmur rolled through the rows like the start of an avalanche. Miranda turned pale beneath her makeup. Reed's eyes darted toward the back of the room. Press.
Good.
"You were mourning my money," I said. "Not my life." Gasps echoed. From my purse, I pulled a folded printout. Bank notification of the $5 million transfer, dated the morning I died. I held it high, then dropped it on the floor like garbage. Cameras clicked. Miranda tried to speak. No words came. Reed stepped forward again, mouth opening. I didn't give him the chance. I turned to the press. "Funerals are for the dead," I said. "And I'm not done living." The room exploded. Flashbulbs, whispered swearing, chairs shifting. I could hear reporters calling my name. But all I saw was Miranda's face, frozen, cracked. Reed's knuckles whitening on the podium edge. As I stood under the chapel lights, my mind echoed a memory I hadn't let myself feel in years. Miranda, age 8, clutching my hand at our parents' divorce hearing, whispering, "Promise you'll never leave me." She had cried into my jacket. Back then, I'd believed her tears. Now I knew better. She'd never wanted me close, only wanted me gone when the time suited her. Have you ever realized that the person who once begged you to stay was the same one who wanted you gone when it mattered most? That shift, when love turns into strategy, cuts the deepest. If you've ever felt betrayed by the ones who are supposed to be your safe place, comment a 7 below. Now let's see how I start turning pain into power. The background piano music stopped the moment I stepped in. A beat of hollow silence. Then the soundtrack switched, bass thumping low and tense beneath the surface, like something alive. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was war drums. I saw Miranda's face shift, slow motion, the sob frozen on her lips, eyes stretched wide, the corner of her mouth twitching not from sadness but calculation, failing. For once, her reflexes couldn't catch up to reality. I had become the ghost she could not manipulate. Cameras followed me, but I kept walking like I owned the air around me. Because I did. The illusion was dead now.
They weren't mourning me.
They were watching me take back the room, the story, the truth. As I walked toward the exit, a little girl in the front row tugged her mother's sleeve and pointed at me. "You're not dead," she said softly, smiling. "No," I whispered back. "I'm just getting started." I passed a man in the front row, mid-50s, expensive suit. He leaned toward his assistant and hissed, "What the hell is going on here?"
Perfect.
Near the entrance, I paused beside the blown-up photo of myself. I reached up, fingers brushing the black ribbon in the corner. Then I tugged it free, let it fall. I stepped outside into the bitter air. Vera was waiting near the steps, eyes locked on me.
You made your point, she said.
I didn't stop walking. "You need to hear this," she said, grabbing my arm. "They're not done. Miranda filed a legal motion, emergency order to freeze your accounts. And she's calling for a board vote tomorrow." I laughed once.
Cold. Hollow.
Then tomorrow, I said. They'll learn who they're really dealing with. They buried me in lies before they tried to bury my body. The morning after the funeral, headlines bloomed like rot across every screen. CEO Selena Cross returns from the dead, but is she mentally fit to lead? The article was cold, surgical. No byline.
Just a smear campaign in digital ink.
At Vera's kitchen table, I stared at the tablet, jaw locked. She slid a cup of black coffee toward me, but my hands were too steady to need the caffeine. The headline wasn't surprising. It was a signal. They're testing public sentiment, Vera said, softening the blow before they file. They already filed, I replied. Trust me. Just hours after the funeral, Vera's phone buzzed with a private server alert. Miranda had already filed an emergency petition to the Denver County Court. The request: freeze my accounts, restrict my access to the company, and initiate a mental evaluation. Vera leaned against the wall, jaw tight, and said, "They're moving fast." This was always the real plan. She handed me the morning paper. The headline read, "Cross returns, but is she stable enough to lead?" I didn't even blink. Let them run it. I'll write the ending. 2 hours later, we stood in the heart of downtown Denver, the 25th floor of an old law building. Frost clung to the windows like a warning. The conference room was sleek, too sterile, too white. A dozen people sat around the table, attorneys, board members, company reps. All of them looking at me like I was the wild card no one bet on. Miranda sat across from me, her expression soft and gracious, until her lawyer stood. Given Miss Cross's prolonged absence, we request the court initiate an independent psychological evaluation and temporarily freeze her access to Cross and Vail executive functions and financial accounts. These actions are preventative and intended to protect the company's interest. A small pause, like he expected applause. I leaned forward, folded my hands on the polished wood. "So you're saying I'm a risk, but you've already taken control of my accounts, without a court order." The lawyer didn't blink. There was urgency. Vera reached into her folder. "Let's discuss urgency then." She played the first clip. Reed's voice filled the silent room. "She hasn't been herself lately, but that works for us. She's distracted." A beat. Then a second voice, Miranda's. "Just file it. The sooner we move, the cleaner it'll look." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Reed shifted in his chair. That was taken out of context. Vera lifted an eyebrow. "Would you like us to play the rest?" Miranda crossed her legs, uncrossed them. "Selena's been under extreme stress. We were trying to protect her legacy by faking documents." Vera fired back. On cue, the screen displayed 2 sets of signatures side by side. My real one, and the forged ones they'd submitted to initiate fund transfers and legal claims. "Notice the tail angle on the capital S?" Vera said calmly. "Not just a forgery. A lazy one." Miranda's jaw twitched. "This is ridiculous." "No, Miranda," I said, voice flat. "What's ridiculous is forging my consent while I was bleeding into snow." In the boardroom, the tension wasn't just thick, it pulsed. A faint ticking sound filled the room. Someone tapping a pen against a notebook, rhythmic and nervous. I could hear the hum of the overhead vent, the faint whir of a laptop's fan. No one dared interrupt. When Vera cued the first clip, the silence was almost suffocating. During Miranda's breakdown, her voice cracked, and her hand slapped the table hard enough to echo. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was fatal. Even the clicking of a nearby keyboard halted. A ripple of cold embarrassment spread through the room. At one point, Reed tried to soften the damage. He leaned toward me during a pause, whispering, "Selena, we thought you were gone forever." I turned to him slowly. "You wanted me gone forever." Then I pulled my arm away. As the flash drive slid into the laptop and the grainy footage began to play, I glanced past the room, toward the window. The cross and veil sign across the neighboring building flickered to life as the daylight faded. The blue LED lighting buzzed in the glass. My reflection stared back, calm, sharp, deadly. I didn't feel victorious. I felt cold. That was better. And then Miranda cracked. She never cared about the company like we did, she snapped, eyes flaring. We built it while she played the icon. We cleaned her messes. A board member cut in. So you admit to acting in her absence without authority? Miranda blinked, realizing too late the mask had slipped. Reed stared down at his notes like they might save him. A thin man in a gray suit, one of the senior shareholders, tapped the table. So she's alive. She's competent. And the signatures are fake. Why exactly are we still discussing her removal? I let the silence stretch, then pulled a final flash drive from my bag. This one's for the real show. Vera plugged it in. The screen filled with grainy footage, security cam footage from the 10th floor file room. Date stamped the same day I was pushed from the helicopter. There, in black and white, Reed and Miranda opened the locked safe. Removed documents. Photocopied pages.
Laughed.
I turned to the room. They didn't just steal my money. They tried to erase my existence. Dead silence. And then, slow nods around the table. The war had begun, and I had drawn first blood. After the final clip played, Vera received a ping on her encrypted email. She leaned in, eyebrows raised. Anonymous tip, she muttered, typing rapidly. Then aloud. Check account routing. They moved the capital offshore 6 days before Selena's death. Attached, transfer log, encrypted bank ID. She turned the laptop to the board. Still think this was about legacy? Miranda's face went paper white. No one in the room moved. I didn't either. The war had already started. They just didn't know I'd brought fire. My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. One text. I know what they did. Meet me tonight. Bring no one. Every secret they buried came with a copy, and I just found the key. The diner was nearly empty, just a jukebox humming in the corner and a waitress pretending not to listen. Aaron Huxley looked older than I remembered. Hair messy, eyes hollow, voice barely above a whisper. He slid a metal key across the Formica table. Unit 47B. Old Capital Storage. Back lot. No cameras facing the door. I kept it just in case. I stared at the key, the cold weight of it in my palm heavier than it should have been. You're not doing this for me, I said.
He looked down.
I'm doing it because once I thought Miranda loved me, and she almost made me ruin someone else for it. He handed over a thick envelope. Just one request. Don't open this unless you're ready to end it. Everything. As we drove, the cold seeped into the silence. Vera glanced at me, then at the envelope Aaron had given me. You trust him? She asked. I hesitated. Aaron worked in back-end IT before Reed pushed him out. Miranda covered it up. There was a harassment complaint. He disappeared after that. My voice dropped. She used him, like she uses everyone. Vera didn't speak again until we reached the unit. We drove in silence through icy streets until the edge of the city bled into industrial warehouses. Faded letters. Salt stains. A gate creaked open like a warning. Unit 47B was in the back, past broken bulbs and empty soda cans. The lock clicked open with a metallic groan. The rolling door screeched up halfway before catching, like even it hesitated. Inside, the cold hit harder. No windows. No warmth. Just the stale scent of dust and dried glue. The harsh overhead light flickered, one bulb buzzing, another dead. Shadows stretched against the walls like fingers. A low hum from an ancient ventilation fan throbbed through the silence. Every few seconds, the clunk of dripping condensation echoed from somewhere behind the units. Vera's boots crunched on salt-stained concrete. This feels more like a graveyard than a storage room. Rows of gray storage bins. Some labeled with Sharpie. Others marked only with numbers. The floor was clean, unnaturally so. Organized chaos, except someone had clearly cared about these secrets. I flipped a box open. Fake medical forms. A doctor's signature I didn't recognize. My name typed beneath, subject exhibits, signs of paranoid delusion. Notes scribbled like a script. One page even had my symptoms pre-highlighted. She rehearsed this, Vera whispered. They rehearsed your death. Like a play. The next box held photos of my apartment, my medications, my calendar, all neatly logged. Some were highlighted. Miranda's handwriting in the margins. Unstable, circled 3 times. We opened another. A recording device. Vera plugged it into her laptop. Read. Let's move fast. She's not coming back. The policy clears in 30 days. Operator. Are you sure she's legally presumed dead? Read. Pause. Won't be a problem. My nails dug into my palm. She was dead to them before I ever hit the ground, I said. Vera nodded grimly, fingers moving fast over her keyboard, backing up files. Then I saw it, a photo tucked into a cracked manila envelope. A young me, and my mother. Her handwriting scrawled on the back. Protect her, no matter what. Something sharp twisted inside my chest. Then I remembered the envelope Aaron gave me at the diner. I pulled it from my coat. It was sealed in wax. Vera raised an eyebrow as I opened it. Inside, a memory stick and one line written on a folded scrap of yellowed paper. Only open this when you're ready to finish it. A second later, the unit's fluorescent lights buzzed louder, then dimmed. My phone vibrated violently. Unknown caller. No name. I answered. Miranda's face appeared, calm and pristine. Her voice, honey-laced venom. You always had to know everything, didn't you?
I didn't respond.
I flipped my camera, showing her the files. The tapes. The notes with her handwriting. Her smile twitched. For a second, just a second, her mask cracked. Then it returned. Colder. Be careful what you dig up, Selena. Some graves are meant to stay shut. I stared at her, my voice quiet but razor sharp. You should have made sure I stayed dead. I ended the call. Vera stood frozen beside me, still staring at the screen. She picked up one more file, opened it, and went still. Selena, she said slowly, this one's not about you. It's about your mother. They planned one funeral. I gave them another. This time, it was theirs. The ballroom at the Palomar Hotel in Denver was dressed in funeral black, again. A massive projection screen framed with lilies. Rows of pristine chairs. A slideshow of my smiling face looping above a banner that read, In memory of Selena Cross, visionary. Leader. Gone too soon. Vera stood beside me in the service corridor, fingers flying across her tablet, syncing files, checking the upload queue. My breath fogged in the cold metal air. You ready for this? She asked. I was born for this, I said. They should have made sure I stayed dead. Back in Vera's apartment the night before the shareholder memorial, we'd mapped every second like choreography. Vera coordinated with a small, independent media group she trusted from her political days, people who didn't flinch when the truth burned. She'd called in favors. Meanwhile, I hired a digital team to compress and reformat the audio files and prepare a synchronized timestamp overlay for the projector. You're not just showing them what happened, Vera had said. You're forcing them to see it frame by frame. The morning of the funeral meeting hybrid, Vera double-checked every adapter and cable. We even rehearsed plugging in from the AV corner under 30 seconds to avoid interruptions. Her eyes scanned the floor plan like a general pre-battle. Inside, Miranda stood at the podium, tears cued on command. Selena wanted the company to live on without her. We owe it to her legacy to keep moving forward. Applause. Soft, orchestrated. Then the doors slammed open. Gasps rolled across the room like a wave as I stepped inside. My heels struck the marble with slow, deliberate certainty. I wore black, not for mourning, but as a warning. The slideshow stopped mid-transition. Someone dropped a glass in the back row. A journalist muttered, "Is that?" Miranda froze, lips parted mid-sentence, face drained of color. I walked straight to the front. Let's stop lying. This is what really happened. Vera plugged the laptop into the projector. The screen blinked, and for one heavy second, everything was still. Then the video started. A shriek of feedback pierced the room. The mic whined as the clip began. It wasn't accidental. It was the sound of falsehood meeting truth. Miranda's voice crackled through the speaker. She never saw it coming. All it took was a push. Easy money. The room went deathly quiet. A spotlight from the AV rig flicked on, pinning the screen and Miranda's pale face in white clarity. Phones raised.
Gasps.
A wave of disbelief and horror. Miranda's eyes were wild. That was taken out of context. I raised a hand. Play the next one. Reed's voice now. Just file the claim. The sooner it looks tragic, the cleaner it lands. Vera overlaid timestamps, matching exact moments from the claim log and forged signature reports. The evidence was meticulous, undeniable. Reed stepped forward, voice cracking. This is a smear campaign. She's unstable. She was declared. I was declared dead. I interrupted. By you. A murmur rose from the audience. I built cross and veil, and while I bled into the snow, you staged a tragedy to steal it. You didn't grieve me. You erased me. I reached into my bag and threw a folder onto the table. The pages fanned out, insurance claims, forged health records, internal emails with Miranda's notes. You staged my death for money. Now I'm here to bury your lies. The camera crew Vera planted among the press zoomed in on board members. I caught everything. The furrowed brow of Harlan Vale, the side glance between two HR heads. Small reactions, but seismic shifts, and then something no one planned. A young woman, sitting near the front, stood up quietly. Her eyes shone with tears. I never believed you were gone, she said, just loud enough for those near her to hear. Her voice cracked, but it didn't shake. That's when the doors opened again, this time with purpose. Two officers in dark suits entered. One held a warrant. Miranda Vale, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted grand larceny. She stumbled back, mascara streaking. You can't do this. I'm the victim. A security guard clamped cuffs on her wrists. She thrashed, looking at me. You ruined everything. I stepped close and whispered, Don't cry. You said funerals were for closure. Her scream was cut short by the door slamming behind her. Across the room, a senior shareholder turned to Reed. You're done here. Effective immediately. Reed's shoulders collapsed. For once, no mask to hide behind. I turned to face the audience. Camera lights blinking, journalists whispering. Vera nudged my arm. We did it. But as we walked down the hallway outside the ballroom, my phone buzzed. Again.
And again.
Vera checked hers too, then stiffened. She turned the screen toward me. Dozens of headlines blooming in red. Selena Cross accused of embezzlement. Anonymous source provides leaked documents. Crosses returned shrouded in legal fog. The real fraud? New evidence points to Selena herself. Right after the arrest, Reed slipped through the side. Vera and I watched him from the mezzanine. He ducked into a hallway, pressed his phone to his ear. Plan B. Do it now, he said, before slamming the stairwell door shut. Outside, while the media scrambled for statements, I paused. The glass-paneled lobby looked different now. Familiar. I walked toward the emblem carved into the marble, cross and veil. For months, I'd avoided even seeing it online. Now, I raised my hand and traced my fingers along the curve of the C.
I didn't cry.
Not then. But something opened inside me. And for the first time since they pushed me, I didn't feel like I was climbing out of a grave. I felt like I'd rebuilt the earth beneath my feet. Have you ever stood at the ruins of what broke you and felt stronger instead of smaller? That quiet moment when you realize you're no longer surviving, you're leading. If you've ever risen from something meant to destroy you, drop a 9 in the comments. Next, let's see what I do when they try to rewrite her story again. They tried to rewrite my ending. I chose a different one. The air outside the Colorado State Courthouse was sharp enough to sting. A sea of reporters crowded the marble steps, lights pulsing like angry stars. Some yelled my name. Others shouted accusations. Microphones stretched forward like weapons. Did you fake your death, Selena? Are you trying to spin this before the trial? I didn't answer. Not yet. Vera handed me the small USB. I took it with steady hands, turned, and walked to the portable projector we'd mounted onto the old justice plaque. A beat passed. Then I plugged it in. The wall of the courthouse flickered. And then she appeared. Miranda. Champagne glass in hand. Her voice slurred slightly, but her smirk was razor sharp. Reed sat beside her in that same gray cashmere coat he wore to my first funeral. She was always in the way, Miranda said, swirling the glass. All it took was a push. Reed laughed. And a good alibi. The crowd hushed. Phones lifted. Journalists froze. Then the sound of live-stream pings began. Hashtag Justice for Selena climbing like a firestorm. Across TikTok, X, and YouTube Shorts, the video surged. I stepped into the mix range. I didn't fake anything. But they did. And this, I pointed to the projection, is the truth they buried. More phones came out. The crowd had shifted. No longer hunters, they were witnesses. I reached into my folder. This, I said, holding up the original records, is every fake medical report. Every forged transfer. Every lie they sold about me. I clicked my remote again. Screens around the plaza lit up with a breakdown. Bank statements leading directly to Miranda. The physician who declared me mentally unfit? Suspended. Under investigation. They declared me dead. But today I bury their lies. And I rise. On my terms. It wasn't planned. But the applause erupted like thunder. A woman in the crowd pushed forward. Maybe mid-60s. She pressed something small into my palm. A paper crane. You gave me one of these when I had nothing, she said. Now you gave me something more. Vera wiped a tear and smirked. That was a funeral they'll never recover from. Reporters swarmed the sidewalk, pivoting, chasing someone moving toward a black SUV at the curb.
Reed.
Sunglasses on, head ducked low. A journalist caught up. Mr. Cross, do you have any comment about the confession? He broke into a jog. Slipped. Cameras caught the fall in full resolution, poetic. Behind me, the image of Miranda on the courthouse wall remained frozen, laughing, damning herself with every careless word. I walked down the courthouse steps not as someone defending herself, but as someone reclaiming her name. The night before the courthouse broadcast, I had barely slept. The media storm had hit faster than we anticipated. Miranda's final bluff. Articles accused me of embezzlement, leaks conveniently discovered by anonymous insiders. The headlines recycled her lie that I faked my death to dodge prison. Vera stayed up with me, cross-checking metadata, timestamps, and caller IDs. At 3:42 a.m., she threw her pen down. "Miranda always keeps a backup lie," she muttered. But this time, we brought a flamethrower. At the courthouse plaza, we coordinated angles with our underground media allies. Vera handed out remote Wi-Fi routers disguised as battery packs, so live streams wouldn't be throttled. A drone hovered above the courthouse arch, feeding aerials directly to trending feeds. When I pressed play on the USB, the world didn't just see Miranda and read toast my exit. They saw it from 6 synced camera angles. One of Vera's operators had stitched TikTok captions and auto-translations. The hashtag they pushed her and hashtag Selena Live shot to the top of the charts in 11 countries. Teenagers were remixing my voice with orchestra tracks before I even left the podium. As I stepped away from the mic, a woman grabbed my arm. Not press. Not a plant. Just someone watching. "You don't remember me," she said, her voice trembling. "But I was one of the women you helped at the shelter. When I left my husband, you gave me a coat and this." She reached into her pocket and held up a wrinkled paper crane. "Hope," she whispered. I felt my throat tighten. She pressed the crane into my hand and disappeared back into the crowd before I could ask her name. Later, after Reed's stumble and the digital storm had crested, Vera and I walked the side hallway of the community center. The photo of Miranda and me was still there, a trace of childhood frozen in happier times. I stared at it, long and hard, then took it down and folded it neatly. Vera turned to me and smiled. That was a funeral they'll never recover from. No more words, just a quiet breath as we stepped back into the light. That night, I went live from the park nearby, the same one where years ago I'd helped women find jobs, restart lives. I stood beneath the old elm tree where we used to string lights for summer festivals. "Have you ever survived something like this?" I asked, looking directly into the camera. "Tell me your story. I read everyone." The screen dimmed, but the feed continued. Comments, hearts, messages flying in from around the world. I didn't need their applause anymore. I had something better. I had my name back. I'm not hiding anymore. The lies have been buried, and what remains is my voice, my truth, and a future I built for myself, on my terms. People will always try to rewrite your story when they fear your strength. But if you rise, if you stand in your name, the truth will outlive every betrayal. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you had to rebuild your life from ashes they left behind? Share your story in the comments. I'll be here listening.